This is the March 6th, 2025 meeting of St. City Planning Commission. I would introduce us to everybody that's here, but there's nobody here. You're here all the time, so you know who we are. So let's just move on. First item on the agenda is regular minutes of the January 2nd, 2025 meeting. If you recall, at the last minute there were some double printing, things printed twice. It looked a little out of kilter, and we decided rather than take time to sort all through, let's give staff a chance to resubmit and figure out what we've done. So the now newly revised minutes from the January 2nd, 2025 meeting have been provided to you. Are there additions or corrections to the minutes? Like whatever was in there got corrected, so then all those in favor of adopting the January 2nd, 2025 minutes, we're going to be meeting, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Same sign, minutes are adopted. Thank you, Kristen, for that. Next item on the agenda, regular minutes of Thursday, February 6th, 2025 meeting, our regular meetings were provided to you as well. Are there any additions or corrections to minutes? Ms. Burzak?
Back at page 16. Third complete sentence down, Ms. Burzak stated she has no issue with equipment getting larger, but believes it should not be. It should take not out. Take the word not out, that it should be at least 1 foot from the lot line.
Any issue with that from anybody? Sort of consistent with my recollection as well.
Yeah.
Any other additions or corrections? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor of adopting the minutes as corrected here today, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Adopted as corrected here today, thank you. Next item on the agenda, a reminder, we're, big news, Home Call Palladium. We're not gonna meet on a Thursday, we are meeting on Wednesday, April 9th. Sounds funny and we laugh, but we did that, I think that had something to do with Easter, spring break, something or all, I think Easter, spring, I thought it was early.
It is earlier.
So I'm not sure why we did it, maybe it had something to do with the building being closed on that Thursday or whatever. But for whatever reason, we adopted, because I think St. Joe's Creek spring break is like the last week of March, isn't it?
It's the last Friday of March plus that first,
What was
going to the next week.
I don't remember, but we did it, and so it's one to take particular note, that is unusual. Time is the same, we're still meeting 4:30 here. Time is the same, it's just off a day, and that's a Wednesday, April 9th, and I remind everybody, get that on the calendar.
It's also off a week because the.
Oh, that's right, that's probably why.
So it's
Yeah, that-
Thursday,
first one is
April
Spring,
3rd.
spring break.
That's probably why our regular meeting day was during
Spring break.
vacation. And then that caused the problem, probably with this. routes
CBA or
availability
something, so,
So we
okay.
moved it. There we go.
Now it makes sense.
So anyway, but still easy to forget when it's not Thursday at 4:30,
Yeah.
so put it on the calendar. All right, old business, then, we are back to parking and, I'll be the first one because now to all of you. I may not have gone through and pulled all of my prior packets, so. I'm better at that than I am, but we're down to two main focus for discussion today, Kristen, as I understand it. And that's residential parking in the D district and R3 multifamily district, as well as the indoor and outdoor entertainment provisions. That's where you'd like us to focus. Is that correct? Start with what you're recommending and then we start in on the discussion.
Okay, so on packet page 21, talks about the residential dwelling districts, and I only dealt with the D downtown residential units. In the past, we went from, the commission excluded that going from 1.5 spaces per dwelling unit to 1 appropriate. I did some additional research and it's on packet page 23, you can see that. Still a mix of anywhere from 0 to 2. So, and that's only for new construction or if you've got more than dwelling units in an existing building.
And this would not address the short-term rentals, which they eliminated any parking requirement for by the city, correct?
So I did circle back because I know some communities have been changing their rules.
Mhm.
We talked about that. I 2021. The other one that kind of came up is multiple family districts or multifamily is, right now it's 2 parking spaces per dwelling unit. And I didn't do a survey of other communities, but what we did do is study the existing 4 large apartment complexes in town to kind of see where their parking is at. We were able to find out the bedroom mix, the number of dwelling units. We went out on site, counted the number of parking spaces. And then we also have total safety, packet page 25, they did a survey of at several different days and times of the week, how many cars were in parking lots.
Packet page 25,
Yeah,
my packet page 25 says indoor and outdoor.
Yeah.
entertainment.
Right.
my packet page 25.
Yeah, so some reason the packaging aren't matching.
31.
It's more like 30, 31.
31 is the one they're looking
I don't,
for.
yeah, wonder why ours aren't matching.
I just had a question. The 515 state, they have no parking?
Correct.
Where do the people park? Because those are occupied.
A lot of them, I think, park in those 2 lots at Elm and State Street. Because even the building at 520 has no parking either. Tony's mom was at 520 or has lived at 520. And they utilize the public parking to the north, so.
We did not look at the complex on South State. There's a South State, in 1500 block of South State. That wasn't. looked at.
Yeah, I looked at buildings that were large. I didn't look at things that were 12 or under.
Okay.
Okay. I mean, I called out some of them, but most of them I called out just have sufficient parking for one typically.
And the other thing, the most recent document to look at parking standards was from 2002. Page 21, is there anything more recent than that? Apparently not. Or we just think we didn't get a chance. That seems pretty,
Well, for the multiple family, that's all new stuff.
well, what about the other?
Well, for the downtown, that's stuff I recently did in the last probably last 3 months. The survey of other communities.
Right, I get that. I just was looking at the parking advisory service for parking standards review and you said the most recent doc. You're talking about our former documentation?
Yeah.
I thought you were looking at some generalized standards. Okay, industry standards, so to speak, the way you're talking is, okay. That helps. All right, so what are you're asking for us?
So in regards to the multiple family, based on the information we found, we also ran a calculation of different scenarios of 1 space per dwelling unit, 1.25 spaces, 1.3 spaces, 1.5 or 1.75. You might want to, it looks like 1.5 spaces per multiple family might be a more appropriate use of land. Because there's more single people living in apartments or multiple family developments. And there appears to be, in most cases, sufficient space on site to accommodate this. Could also keep you with some space for snow removal.
Is that staff's recommendation to go to 1.5 in
Yeah, I would-
R3?
That would be my thoughts here.
And that's on our page 28.
Our page.
Yep. Do believe.
Kristen, how does this affect, let's use 520 as an example, that has no parking. So they'll be non-conforming, no matter
They
what.
already are,
Yeah, so, and nothing we do will change that.
correct. It went,
How does the new parking restrictions affect that apartment building? Because technically, they can't park overnight in that north parking.
I don't know if it pertains to those or not. It's not really involved in it. I know in the D district, if you're renting or if you own a condo, the goal will be in the policy they're working on that you would get a free pass, I guess, to park places
But they're not
until you
in,
no longer live in the unit, and then the new tenant would not get that option.
okay,
Was
I
that,
So
can
this
see
is a
if-
mess.
if
Yeah, it
Kayla-
is.
was that discussed? I don't remember.
This-
That was,
Uh,
that was at the city commission meeting, the last one we had on,
so that is still going through the new parking.
So that lot that currently allows overnight parking, because that's where all the people park overnight currently. So that's changing to not.
Is it that they were
I
allowed or
think-
now they're gonna charge for it?
let me see if Kayla's here.
Because I'm not even gonna get to the library, you're never gonna get. places
That's
at
a
the
really big
library.
issue.
That's
That's
gonna be a
right.
mess.
That's gonna be a difficult situation for loyal library patrons.
Well, will they make the parking all along Lake pay to park too?
I think it's, that's the plan.
Yeah,
That
and
is
the
the plan.
library has a lot of people going in and out.
We're charging.
Heated parking.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're gonna try and save some, I'm sure it'll be the spots right across the street next to the boulevard, but enforcement of that's going to be
Difficult.
really difficult.
Yeah, lightness.
This is Kayla Griffith. She's the communication and special projects director.
And didn't have a clue we were gonna call her, and boy, that is a really crappy thing to do that.
Grumpy nice.
We just got some general questions about parking downtown and the new system that's going in. It's kind of what led us to ask you to come in and talk to us. And we're talking about the apartment complexes on State, where there's been overnight parking and et cetera. How it is envisioned that it will work for the residents in those apartment complexes for parking purposes.
Yes, so if you are currently a resident of the area where we are going to have downtown paid parking, then we understand that our residents understood that they would be getting free parking from the city, and so we are going to have a waiver application. So a resident would just need to come to City Hall and provide proof of their address. And then they would just need to reapply every year, but they bring their license plate and the license plate is put into the system so that it automatically won't issue a ticket.
Are the hours going to change? There was a question about the overnight lots. Will they still be overnight lots, but you have to pay to be overnight unless you have a waiver?
So anything 9 AM to 9 PM is paid, and then overnight or anything outside those hours is not paid.
Another question, will they provide maybe along Lake for the library or along the side street, like 15-minute parking for the library? So that, people can run in and out and return things and able to do
Yes, so any current 15 or 30-minute free parking is going to remain 15 or 30-minute. And then the library has designated spots that are free for patrons that are both 30-minute and 3-hour.
that. Are they designated spots that they already own, or are you going to give them extra parking on the street for?
That I am not exactly sure, so but I think it's
They have very
they
limited
don't.
current designated parking. There's about 4 spots plus 1 handicap spot.
yeah, I believe they are getting some additional spots. I don't know how many.
Back to the apartment buildings. So the current tenants can get a waiver. And then the new tenants don't have access to that, or all tenants would
So-
have this waiver?
So in the future, for example, for the condos downtown, if someone sells their condo, then someone moving into the condo should understand that parking is paid. So they would not get a waiver, but I know for like MGM apartments, for example, where there are a lot of elderly people, who maybe are on some limited income as well, there is going to be a waiver process for if you both have, you live downtown and you struggle with both your mobility and your income, have a financial hardship, then you can get a waiver as well.
But if they're current residents, they don't have to abide by those restrictions. They
Yes.
just get it automatically.
Yep,
Provided they apply annually for the waiver.
yes,
Okay.
But they leave, you rent to someone new, they don't qualify.
yes, yep, unless they have a mobility issue and a financial. That'll just look like, signing an affidavit at town hall for a mobility issue, and then financial hardship. Right now, anything at 300 qualifies as a financial hardship. That's about $45,000.
What's the cost to park in those lots? If I don't,
So it's $1 per hour, so it would be maximum $12.
And they can buy a monthly pass if they live there or no? They have to pay every day?
I believe we have some, passes in the works. I don't have.
And this is just May through September or?
Yep,
Hmm.
only May through September.
There are questions for our expert who was nice enough to come in on schedule and help us out. Any other questions? Okay, yes, sir.
He didn't ask for the public portion.
Well, we're always welcome comment, but tell us who you are first for the
George
record.
Luker, and I go up and self-proclaimed chairman of Park Zone. I can take Jack's. Anyway, was wondering, we have multifamily dwellings in the neighborhood. And specifically, for example, there are two houses in tandem, one block, 514 and 514 and a half.
What street is that, sir?
Court.
And it's.
Court? Is that 514 and 514 and a half Court?
And so, as someone mentioned, we have a lot of single people. So there are two apartments in the building that borders Court and two apartments in the building that borders the. So my question is, where are those people supposed to park? Before and or after the new.
Let me grab my map real quick.
Is
says
that east
what's
of Maine?
included.
It's east of Maine, right?
It is, yes.
Oh.
R2 zone.
So east of Maine, anything east
Doesn't
of Maine
apply.
It
is
doesn't.
free.
No,
Part
no
A
impact.
parking doesn't apply east of Maine.
Right, but where are they supposed to park?
Where are they parking now?
In the alley. And so if you take two cars per apartment, it pretty much lines up throughout the whole alley. So that's my.
That's maybe more for us than it is for her,
I don't know the zoning.
because she's not,
Precisely.
maybe
but I know
more
people-
for our consideration as we look at R3.
Correct, R2 was mentioned that, I think, and, I think that's not the concentration, but I think there are some existing content or open issues with parking, even in the R2 zone with multifamily.
We would probably,
Because it's zoned as multi.
we would probably agree with that. I'm just thinking in order to let her go back to her desk, I'm not sure it's her area of expertise. But that's definitely a live issue for us for this conversation, for sure. You can escape, run while you get a chance.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very
Thank
much for
you.
taking the time to come see us. Thank you. All right, Kristen, then to this gentleman's point, that sounds like a non-conforming. We've got a few of those around. We've talked about some of them already.
So research I did and everything was not pertaining to the R2 district, which is two family. It was just strictly the R3 district, multi-family. So where the people park, I think a lot of them are probably in the lot to the north here, or they rent spaces from some of the nonprofit groups in the area.
But you're familiar with the
Yeah,
building he's talking
Yeah.
about?
I think that's where some of them are parking, or if we haven't done anything and I'm not aware of anyone forcing parking in the alley or how they park in the alley.
Are those, 2-bedroom units, most of them? How many bedrooms do those have, you know?
They're Victorian houses, so they're relatively large.
Chris, these changes to the parking, it really just applies to new construction?
Correct.
Okay, is that, so we're really, what we're trying to resolve here is new construction.
And, you know, some of these developments may have a space on their property where, oh, now that I don't need an extra 100 parking space, not quite 100, maybe 75 spaces, there might be space to get some more housing on there and comply with the lower parking requirements.
Is there any mention? So if I was building, so parking can be on the first floor,
Correct.
but I can't have residential on the first floor in downtown.
In the downtown, correct, not on the first floor street level.
Okay, so are we addressing any of that with
No,
these changes?
this is just straight looking at the R3 district, changing it from 2 spaces per dwelling unit to 1.5. Or whatever the commission wants to do. And then it was just restating what has previously been discussed regarding parking in the D downtown district. For dwelling units, and they could be single family, 2-unit, it could be. I think there's a couple buildings that have 4 or 5 dwelling units in it. I think there's one that's a 7-unit. It wouldn't really apply to them because there's also an exception that I called out in the zoning ordinance in chapter 18 with parking, that if you have an existing building and you're not expanding the building, you're not going up a floor, you're not, say the building was on half the lot, you weren't expanding it on the other part of the lot. You can modify and put in up to 6 dwelling units without providing any on-site parking. That is not changing. That rule is not changing under this. This would just say, basically, it would pertain to if something new is built. Or if you had more than 6 dwelling units, it's decreasing the number of required parking from 1.5 to 1.
So when we met in November, December with I forget the firm, the economic development firm, right? We had the joint meeting. And we talked about a push in the future to allow detached auxiliary dwelling units.
I
Right.
didn't get into that. There's a lot of moving parts to that.
Okay, so if we go in that direction, that would be considered new construction if somebody adds a garage with an apartment above it to rent out, right? So they would need 2 spaces for that plus 2 for their home?
Correct.
Okay,
But I think whenever we get to that point, there's a lot of other things to look at. And if when we get to looking at adding in a second dwelling unit onto any residential property, there's a lot of other things that come into play. So I did not get into that area before that.
But absent addressing that separately, this would apply, would it not?
No, because it's not multiple family, it says R3. And if you look at table 18.1, it specifically calls out. Divide it up, and that's how I did the graph language if we were to change it at the end of the packet.
Is R3 our maximum density or maximum
Multiple
zoning?
family.
Okay, so there's no
You assume it's the
R4.
highest density. But there is no, the way the ordinance is written, it doesn't say you can have 20 units, right? It's silent on that. It just talks about the minimum size of the dwelling. How you divide that up.
Other comments
So, Kristen, this would impact potentially the proposed condos at the YWCA lot. This would favorably impact.
It would, that one would fall under the D district.
Yeah.
So it would go from 1.5 spaces to one per dwelling unit. In the R3 multiple family zoning use districts, it would go from 2 to 1.5.
And when they've proposed this last, what was the parking requirement that?
I have not seen any proposals, so I don't.
No,
No, the original.
The
Oh,
one was
that one,
approved.
I don't know, it was before me, I really have. I don't know, I didn't know that. Well,
We did, my guess is we brought it in compliance with the existing ordinance. That was 1.5. I think we did actually, and came up with a plan. It was tight, but it came up with a plan, but I think it was 1.5 and it wasn't. Does anyone have any significant issue with what staff is proposing in terms of the reduction of these numbers?
So I have a couple of questions, because when I kept tossing between 1.5. Because if you look at the counts, it seemed like there were quite a few where the 1.25 being worse when you looked at the numbers that were actually there. Versus, you know, what, but I realize when you're taking these counts in the lot, you know, depending on the time of day, it can vary significantly. So even though in a lot of situations, the 1.25 seemed to still be adequate, everyone felt more comfortable with the 1.5 because of, to have extra fluff or just to have, because like, for instance, if the number of dwelling units, the total number of spaces, like just as an example, Lake Crest, Cleveland. There are 303 parking spaces. You know, the 2 spaces require 396. And then it goes into like the different number that would be needed. But then if we go back where, trying to find the page that had where you guys actually went out there and counted them.
Page 31.
Page 31 in ours, so. Yeah, so when you counted them. You know, there were 128 only, 222. So I get that, so 222, 239, we never got to the 1.25, just as using Lake Crest, Cleveland as an example. So part of me feels like, why did we pick 1.5 or why did everyone recommend 1.5? If we never got, every time they counted, we never got to even the 1.25 because the additional lack of pavement could provide more opportunities for green space and better environmental, you know, keeping like less discharge, you know, into sewer systems and all kinds of stuff like that. So I guess I'm just wondering, you know, is there a good reason that the 1.5, because I kept circling, when I went through it, I kept thinking it was 1.25 was a closer option to where it would need to be.
Or if you look at Westview's extremely tight, you get
Yeah, so
close
there's
to
a
full
oddball.
occupancy.
Yeah.
Well, is the thought that the reduction would allow for, as described by Ms. Burzak, or is it more akin to what we've now been told is the articulated goal, which is 900 extra units? I mean, have they run a projection on if we reduce to 1.25 or 1, how many expected units that might create? Seems to me that would be the way this would be consistent with the now articulated goal besides accessory structures, increasing the number of housing units in the city of St. Joe within the next 5 years.
I wouldn't know any.
Well, are they looking at that though in terms
So I
of?
mean, look at our R3 district. It's extremely limited and it's
Yeah.
built out.
Yeah,
Regardless of what we do, you're not getting any new units on those
Not there.
properties.
yeah.
Where you've got room for additional R3 is in the water recreation district, and that's all by PUD anyway.
Yeah, so you're setting your own number.
Or downtown on lakefront lots, and that's in the R1 district, so, I mean, regardless of what we do here, the impact to me is next to nothing.
I mean,
So,
Yeah.
I mean, I ended
I
up
didn't
in the
think
same
of
place Kathy was,
Yeah. I
one
guess
point
I
two
would-
five,
Yeah.
and then you
Right.
look at where our R3 districts are. And if there's more people trying to park, what's that impact? Generally, those R3 districts are not terribly adjacent to R1 districts. Where you're pushing parking out into the neighborhoods. I mean, it's Lakeshore Drive, you got one on Cleveland Avenue with R1 across the street. Yeah, so I see very limited impact, and I mean, what are we really splitting hairs over here?
Well, it would only be, yeah, new construction is pretty much.
Yeah, cause I guess I just wonder how many of these properties would go and tear that pavement out and change it to something else anyway.
Pretty much zero. I would
Yeah.
think.
Yeah, it's only really like looking at it is moving forward probably where we need to be and. You know, what I mean, a developer's not gonna wanna build something that people then don't wanna buy or live in because they're not happy with the parking situation and they gotta walk.
Who is the consensus to go to 1.25?
Yeah, I'm comfortable 1.25 or 1.33 if we want to put a little cushion in there, but I think we can go less than 1.5.
Kristen, what the other Corewell Health apartment building that we approved here, is this, what is that zoning that they're in?
It's R3, too.
So-
So that's Lookout Point, their existing building, the existing
They're at 2.
development has 92 units. They have 188 parking spaces. And out of the 5 counts, they had one day where they hit 100 cars in that parking lot.
Yeah.
And in talking with people from Corewell, it sounds like a lot of those units are single occupants.
Mhm.
But it is kind of a different situation.
Well, employment shift rotation, those kind of things play a factor there that may not play other places. If they are really renting predominantly to hospital
Yeah.
employees, that would change that. What staff's position, what is your single best argument against 1.25? If any, you may not have, you may be fine with it, I'm just saying, what is the best argument you have against doing that?
I guess some of the concern is, if people don't plan for snow removal. And you do put in right at 1.25 and you really should have had, and you use every single one of those spaces, what happens in the winter? Or what happens when you have, 10 tenants have a party? Where are they going? And yeah, you probably won't have parking for everyone, but, that's kind of why staff recommended a little higher number. I mean, I'm not tied to it, but that is something that needs to be considered. And a lot of the developers that come in or we talk to, they don't seem to think about some of those things.
So don't you require, so I've had submittals where I've had to show where I'm gonna store snow removal. So what if that was a thing that was added where you had to show where you're doing snow removal and it can't be in parking spaces that count for your, quantity? What if that was something that got changed? Because to me, to just arbitrarily make more pavement when they push their snow maybe in more green space. And they know they have to have the ability to store it. But then are they just gonna slap in way more density in units and then we're not working it out anyway?
I think that would be probably presumptively wise to at least consider the fact that more space, we would go to more units
So the other
first
way,
before some of these other alternatives. I mean, that's how these developers would.
Yeah.
Make
so we
make
could,
money, is
we
to
could
have more
also
units.
add in something that 1.25 plus XXX additional visitor parking spaces per XXX number of units. That way,
Or should that just go
you're
to the market?
booking in that, that there are gonna be people that have parties and things, so you're adding in that. And and it could be based on, I don't know, Sean's probably got a something
Well, the other
that's
side
better
is,
than
does
the
that
other.
not go to what you can charge for place? If I go there and you don't have enough parking, I mean, that factors into whether I decide to enter my
Yeah.
private. I mean, that's a marketing, is that a marketing thing or is it something the city wants? to recommend? I mean, back and forth on it. No, I don't worry too much about parties. I mean, that is, people have parties in nice neighborhoods and single family dwelling and you got people parking everywhere. So that's less of a concern for me. Snow removal maybe, but then again, if my landlord is not very good about snow removal, I may look to rent somewhere else. I mean, where do you feel the city should get involved and how much should we get involved? That could be resolved by going from 1.25 to 1.33. I don't know. Now that's where I need the engineer brain. Tell me, is that a marketable enough difference? That may not impact number of units, but could impact, oh, yeah.
I can't do things in my head.
I don't know the answer to that question. Kristen, what do you think? Does the 1.25 to 1.33 make a discernible difference? I mean, obviously it makes a difference. I get that. But as far as the issues we're talking about.
What have the other progressive towns done in the area? Do we have perspective on that?
I don't recall. I mean, I didn't go look at, study that part of it. You know, there's some communities that are going to, like the South or what they want. We're talking about parking for the past, that really wasn't.
Mhm.
So how about now, who actually does it? I'd be curious. Do you think of a community that actually says, developer, name your parking requirement, we're good with that?
The ones that I'm more familiar with, like I think Kalamazoo is leaning more towards that and around. They also have transit, they also have public transportation.
Anything more closely aligned with, city, more comparable to St. Joe?
Probably in the Detroit area, there's a few that are going more that way. I think it
So in our part of the world, does it tend to be, there's still some kind of a requirement?
yeah, I would say a lot of them still have requirements.
So what towns would these be? South Haven, Saugatuck, New Buffalo?
Grand
I think most of
Haven?
them are
Yeah.
also requiring something. You know, some communities do it based on the number of bedrooms, so like an efficiency is one parking space per efficiency. One bedroom is, you know, 1.5 spaces, a 2-bedroom is 2. That way, but that also gets back to now you're tying the developer down right away of what he's doing, where he may need more flexibility.
And I think it's harder for you to manage because you physically have to know how many bedrooms are in every unit. And I don't think it goes back to that gross square footage versus the other way that it makes it a lot harder on people that are trying to check things to have a way to check it. But I mean, Sean, do you think the 1.33 versus the 1.25 would give the fluff needed for visitor parking? Or if you do 1.25, but then every so many units then need one visitor parking space, then what do we set that at? Every 15 units or, you know, then you add in that many visitor spaces so that you have flexibility when people have overnight guests or anything else. I don't know.
And again, it's a minimum. I mean, our code doesn't say we need more.
Right, but most people aren't gonna build more.
Well, is it sensible to be reducing your required parking for tenants when you're asking them to increase parking for visitors? Is there anybody else say possible logical consistency in there? I mean, I don't know.
Right now, like, it's the visitor thing is just,
That part doesn't.
they don't, it's whether or not a developer sees the need to add visitor parking.
And that's, I think, why some, you know, a lot of the codes were written too.
Cause you have
Because
that.
you have people who aren't there all the time, you know, like our study shows. They're not there all the time, so it doesn't really impact anybody.
Yeah.
Some places would do a percentage of the total required. 10% additional for guest parking. You know, we didn't approach it that way, we just went at it as, here's a number, and I'm not tied to it, I think it just seemed like, you know, in some cases it might be more, you know,
Do you think developers would like that? Going to the way, it seems to me anytime you lower that number, they tend to be happier. I think that's true of
Yeah.
this case, and they'll just design around it for their need.
I mean, the lower count.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they're gonna put in more than what they have to put in.
So the only one this affects that we know of is Corwell Health. The only one that's proposed, that's in R three,
Yeah.
but have they already
No, they
approved
have
the
not.
building?
Plans, yeah.
Yeah, so it would affect them.
I think they were looking at, based on what they said, they believe 2 parking spaces is too much.
Mhm.
I didn't invite them to this meeting, I didn't.
And the numbers reflect that.
Right, across the board.
Yeah,
I see what you're saying.
I mean,
Yeah.
just as an example, if you look at CBS and the number of parking spaces in the pension area. I mean, it's a very good example of, way too much hardscape when it wasn't necessary and the overkill and it also it makes everything cost a lot more money and shies developers away. But on the other hand, you also don't want to have not enough parking and then we have issues.
Well, maybe we do, maybe we don't. That was my earlier point. Do we have an issue or does your developer have an issue?
Yeah.
Because people aren't renting there. A lot of people thought the condos downtown above what used to be Rhymes would never sell because there were no guaranteed parking spots. Well, they sold and they resold.
Yeah.
So there you go. That is downtown. That gives you that. So
Yeah,
I'm okay with going to the 1.25 and if staff is, if I was convinced that the 1.33 would not necessarily affect units, but might be wise for purposes of snow removal, that resonates with me a little more than visitor parking, I have to be honest, but still, I could be convinced either way, but I have no problem with either one of those lower numbers. That seems to be the trend and that's the way things are going and that's why I said if staff feels really strongly about the 1.5, make a case, but I'm hearing you're not tied to it, but pointing out for everybody's consideration, people think that it's more developer friendly to go to the lower number, which it probably is, without any major harm to the city. I'm open to having that conversation.
There a rule of thumb that for every parking space you reduce, you increase the amount of rentable units and sure, there's somebody got some rule of thumb.
Ask for that earlier, I think costing that out, factoring that out, yeah.
So go back to Corwell Health, how could they increase the number of units by what number? Is
For the
there?
built out development that's there right now, the 3-unit building, I don't think they.
So the new.
No,
The new one that we
You're
just
talking about
approved.
the new building.
Do they
They're
double
probably-
it?
They're
Is it,
constrained with the setbacks. That north
but
setback
they can
is
go
quite a bit,
up?
and you can't put anything in it. I
Which
think
buildings are
that's your bigger constraint with that one. Nothing can be built in that, for anywhere from 20 to, because it's
Oh,
a sliding scale setback.
Yeah.
I think they're more constrained by that because they can't put more parking on the property. Because they can't park in those areas. Unless they go to ZBA for a variance. I think. And it also gets into their market. They know how many units they need. Their other buildings are all about 30. The building is a little bigger. It's a little bigger. I think when they were here, they said they were probably gonna put in some efficiencies or studio apartments because they found people were asking for those and they didn't have any in the first 3 buildings. There are 1 and 2 bedrooms. So that changes their market mix, but I don't,
Can we get a consensus on how we'd like to direct staff for drafting?
So a parking spot eats up roughly 200 square feet of length. So you limit 10 spots, all of a sudden you've got 2,000 square feet of additional development.
And in 20 time studies, never once did we exceed 1.25. just based on what's in these tables on our page 31.
Right, so if you look at Lookout Point with 288 spots and they're occupying 100 of them. 88 from times 200 is a substantial square foot.
Yeah. But even if it wasn't land because of setback restrictions and things, it could be open space land that helps with drainage. And, you know, when you're paving it, it doesn't help with drainage, it makes more.
A problem.
Consensus.
I like 1.25, but I also like I like the idea of maybe a certain percentage for visitor parking, but I can go either way. I mean, I know you have issues sometimes with nowhere for additional people to park, so.
Folks generally all right with going to the 1.25?
That's where I'm at. I mean, I look at the visitor parking as that's
That's-
a problem of the complex, not a city problem to handle.
Right, and if it's a party, I mean, like Patsy says.
It is what it is.
Street have parties.
I got it.
Exactly right.
And they're all over the place.
Yep.
So,
And I wasn't invited, but we'll leave that for.
That's it.
Yeah, I think the consensus is go to 1.5. All right, let's go on. Indoor and outdoor entertainment, civic and nonprofit institution of public and private recreation related use. Thoughts there? Staff's looking for, let's start with staff, what you looking for? We're looking for us to tell you, give you direction on what specifically, and then we're going to hear what everybody thinks.
Well, in the past, it was requested that we look at what the American Planning Association suggests, you know. I looked, they don't really suggest anything, they have a book that gives examples from all over the United States, so it runs the gamut of what they want to do. But what I kind of ended up doing was I took those categories, how they are listed in zoning ordinance now, moved them around a little, deleted some of the terminology. And then on the last page, that stapled area, second to the last page, we'll combine indoor and outdoor recreation or just general recreation in the one table. And to amusement centers with go-kart track, water park or video arcade. Get more on the maximum occupancy, so that's kind of how those uses are. I took items that are more like require lanes to do, like I added axe throwing, to have axe throwing in town. A billiard hall, it was already listed, bowling alley, golf driving.
Okay, can I?
There is actually-
Yeah.
I got it. Who's doing X during the time, just. so I-
Lumberjack.
Yeah.
And the old carpet shop by McDonald's on,
Oh, that's. Close to home. Oh.
it's good fun.
They used to be in downtown St. Joe.
And that's why you're not getting invited to these parties.
They better not miss, that's all I
They
can
used to be
say.
in downtown
card.
St. Joe and they moved
Yeah.
over there, used to have it right downtown.
Go ahead, Kristen, I mean, I had to ask.
So I kind of combined those uses and the riflery range and archery into one category. And there I decreased it, because bowling alleys were 5 spaces per lane, plus employees, and I just went down to 4 spaces per each board or lane or bowl or table, and eliminated the employee count. Campgrounds, I kept the same.
So can I ask something about campgrounds?
Yeah.
So when I looked at campgrounds, let me see where I marked it. So confused by these pages not lining up with yours. Okay, I didn't mark that. So I'm not finding it, but I,
On page 34,
on our page 34,
if you're looking for campground.
yeah, that's not the one I marked, but,
It's also on page 25.
that's probably where I marked it. On page 25 of ours, my comment was campground, 2 dust-free, 10 by 30 spaces for every campsite. So campgrounds, I think needs to have different criteria. And So campground with tent camping really only needs one space, 10 by 20 for the vehicle, and then you put the tent wherever on the site. And then I don't think you need 10 by 30. That seems like overkill unless it's for an RV. If an RV is hooked to a truck, you probably need more like 10 by 40, one space, and then maybe one parking space of 10 by 20. So I was looking
Can we
at,
ask her to check, when this was defined with that, what were you contemplating? All kinds of campgrounds? Did you differentiate between tents and RVs?
No, I left that exactly the way the language is in the code today.
so that's where I thought it seems like, well, do we even have the opportunity to have a campground in St. Joe? Maybe that's where I should just shut up
Yeah,
and let you all go home,
I'm
but.
thinking below the bluff would be a perfect place.
Oh.
Well, maybe not.
But for me, why Dust Free? I mean, if I got a dirt road coming to my campsite where I wanna camp out in the woods anyway, why do I need a Dust Free?
Oh, I didn't even get to that one.
Valid.
Yeah, but I was just thinking like, you know. like,
Valid.
Yeah, a tent camp doesn't wanna have, they're not very big, and then you have to keep 2 spots cleared with no trees, so that you have 10 by 30 times 2. It doesn't really,
Well,
it's not gonna be a area that anyone's gonna wanna be.
I think we eliminate it and we deal with campground parking when the
There
opportunity
we go,
arises.
right.
Okay, how about if-
Organized campgrounds fall within the public.
I agree.
I like it.
I like that, good idea,
I feel the same way about open space,
yeah.
waterfront related beach, waterfront access.
Yeah.
I mean, the city of St. Joe or the county are the ones that have parking.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a government entity. The
Mhm.
city of St. Joe's can do whatever they want anyway, regardless of zoning. I think we're killing ourselves over nothing here.
So the only thing, yeah, water related marina, so that one probably we need P, because there are
Private.
PUDs that wanna add marinas, developments. And,
Well, they're just regular commercial marinas. They aren't
Yes.
owned by the city.
yes,
That's-
so that one I think good, but beach or waterfront, now where did you add in? This, I've gotten in trouble in other municipalities with that. Where do you add in when someone wants to put like picnic tables outside for additional outdoor, like at a brewery, as an example? Where did you add that in for, outdoor?
How does it change what's in here in your mind by?
So you can house more, so I'll just give an example, if you go by square footage and you require X number of parking spaces and you've got this big outdoor patio, that now you can get 40 more people. Where did you add it?
We didn't add any more in there. Right now, food and drink establishments are one space for every 100 square feet.
So what about if you have outdoor patio, do you need to add something
Just the one in the sun.
for that? Because
Yep.
that does also, I know other municipalities, have now for outdoor gathering.
But that would be under restaurants and bars and whatever that category.
Where does Crazzle and the outdoor events fall under this?
Razzle would fall under a social institution.
Remind me, we're not a voter, how many boat launch ramps do we have inside the city?
City. The city owns one set of them, I don't know.
Yeah, well, Marina Island, and the one out at, Riverview.
There's two, yes.
Yeah,
In- That's those 45 spaces.
So, but didn't we talk about trying to consolidate this stuff? Was this the consolidated version?
Yeah, if you, the last set of stuff that was taken together is the whole table 18 unconsolidated.
where's that at, Kristen?
Start from page 32.
Yep.
All right, let me-
Yeah, that's what I'm looking at, like. Package page 33, Kristen, where you've got medical services establishment midway through them. Office services.
Those are the those used to be, many of those were individual and they have been put into one.
So, okay, so my question is, if I own a retail strip center and they change from, you know, one of these uses to another, how do you manage parking spaces on this? I mean, it's, in other places I've been at, they just have the
Let's
whole,
pretend Big B Coffee, he owns it, he bought it, now it's gonna be all.
yeah, how do you?
Tequila Azul's gone, we're gonna make that an imaging center and those are gonna be all medical. I mean, how does that work for the parking plans?
Well, if you had a new project coming in. Right now. There's some uses, some buildings we've told people they can't go in because there's not enough extra parking. So we try to consolidate things up, so office and retail. Ended up, I believe, being the same. Same.
You've got
usage.
800 and 350 in different places.
Right, for medical, it is different, and that's because and medical is large, so that's the hospital. Medical, small, which is like a small dental office, or the eye care clinic would be under general office, one for every 350. Which is the same as retail. Durable, or retail on the very last page, general consumable goods would be 350.
So back to package page 33, got medical service establishment. And then under office, you list medical service establishment. Are those two
Large,
different things?
small.
Small.
Large, small.
Hospital is like 1, 2, 3, 4, and 8 large versus a smaller.
So-
I got like Great Lakes.
Okay, I got it. Understood.
When we were really working on this diligently and towards the end, before we stopped, Lori requested to me that we try to tie the uses into the use classes in table 4 of the zone, or table 4-1 of the zoning ordinance. So that's why you see some of that language. If you go back and look at table 4-1, you'll see some of that same language. So it says medical service, and then there's 2 different categories, but
I got it.
different zoning districts. Does
Thank you.
that make more
Yep.
sense now?
Yep.
So. Doing something on my calculator, so like, for instance, under recreational, I'm just gonna use this example. Indoor, outdoor entertainment, open space park or scenic area with limited improvement. Limited improvements, mind you. So if you take an acre of land, 43560 square feet, and you divide that by 5,000, you need 9 parking spaces per acre. Based on that, that's a lot of parking spaces for an acre of land. If it's limited improvement. You know, limited improvement. An acre of land, do you agree, Sean? Yeah, so I just count that, I'm not always math. Wonderful, but, okay, so to me, so did that come from something we had previously, or was that from another source?
Well, the square footage, because that got back to referencing the planning association. Well, there is no information, so on the document that's stapled together that says indoor and outdoor entertainment, the second to the last page. We looked at calculating the size of all these parks. Or beaches, actually, beaches, figured out about how many parking spaces they were. And they came up with a number.
But so the open space park or scenic area with limited improvements, to me, is different than.
Where are you finding? Where?
On packet page 34.
34 at the top.
Well, or either, yeah, the third.
Which one are you reading from?
34.
I'm reading from packet page 34, the third one down. Well, it's actually, yeah, the third
Mhm.
column on the
Okay.
left.
Thank you.
Recreation, indoor, outdoor
Got it.
entertainment. Open space parking or scenic area with limited improvement. To me, that means something like limited improvements. It might have a little bit of a trail, you know. Something like that.
Benches.
An acre of land to have 9 parking spaces. And then every parking space, like Sean said, is basically 200 square feet.
So I came up with the 5,000 square feet because that's what the 1970 ordinance was.
Well, what are you recommending for 2025 though?
For that one, I
need
said,
help
I use
understanding what it is. What is open space or scenic area of limited improvement?
It would be like, let's just say there's a
Lookout Park?
let's just say
That's
there's
what I
a
would think, yeah.
nature conservation area, like a lot of them down in Chickaming. And it's just open space and there might be a spot where you could pull off on the side of the road and walk and look at birds or something. That's what I'm
I
visualizing.
assume it was
I don't
something
need
like
9
Lookout Park.
I think
with
that's-
Yeah, that's what I think
I
it
don't
is.
need
City
9
owned, they can do
parking
what they want.
Well, theoretically,
Like
it
to
could be
me,
private.
I don't think 9 I would put about one to 2 parking spaces per acre at the most, not, so then that would drop that way down.
I think you park on the road and walk in.
Well, to me, it's more important to have in these entertainment areas that everyone are doing outdoor now, to add more parking requirement for those, because that's getting to be a trend thing that every place is adding. Like, let's just say some of the well, we won't use downtown because that's a different bird, but any of these breweries that add all these outdoor patios and stuff, you know, they need to be able to accommodate all those extra people that they can pack in somehow. Now, if it's walkability,
Okay, all right, well, let's stop there. Let's go back over there. Maybe I'm not understanding. When you say I've got an established brewery, but I expand on property that I own next to my established restaurant brewery and put outdoor patio, that's one thing. I don't necessarily read this to mean that.
No, I'm saying that's where I see you need more parking. Here, I don't see the need for it. Like, to me, 9 spaces on an acre of land that's not developed.
Other, or adjacent to anything, or is part of-
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
that's where I
me-
was getting confused.
Yeah, to me, I'm saying like, I think it's way more important to add more to that and take this away.
Or reduce it.
Reduce it, yeah, reduce it to, so if we have 4, 3, 5, 6, 0. 5.
So this, none of this would affect Tiscornia or West Basin. Oh,
So like Sean said earlier, the impression I got was he thought some of it could just be deleted because you're not gonna get more, and it would be city owned or controlled, so.
Would you concur? I mean, does that make sense? Seems to make sense to me, but I may not be thinking of some area of the city that I'm forgetting.
I'm not aware of where we're gonna pick up more park space.
Yeah. Well, Lions Park, Gene Clark, Silver Beach, Tiscornia Beach. There's not a private piece of property in that list, correct?
We're all city owned, or city or county owned.
Mhm.
So we would have, to Sean's point, we would have nothing to say
Non-applicable.
about parking that could be enforceable because they're city-owned properties, correct?
Correct.
That a situation where less is more? We don't need to be in there, I mean. And on Kathy's point, recreation indoor, it does say indoor or outdoor entertainment, open space park. How do you have an indoor open space park? I'm working on that. Or scenic area indoor. Does word indoor need to be there? With limited improvements. I don't know if they have a problem.
Well, this
reducing-
section just covers indoor and outdoor entertainment.
Yeah,
Not all are indoor, not all are outdoor.
Okay. Yes. Okay, so it would be anything that qualified as indoor outdoor entertainment, really sort of put a mental period there. And then as an example, open space park or city where limited improvements would be incorporated in those. Could be any number of things. Okay, that may be more drafting. I may have read that. Well, okay, that makes sense.
so 4 spaces for each hole. Trying to think about the ladies with the golf. 4 spaces for every hole, assuming then there's always 4 people playing.
Do I want to cover the holes typically on driving range, but I guess. Driving range, you know.
So the bowling alley started this one off. The bowling alley specifically called out 5 spaces per lane.
Yeah, it's,
Which seemed
That's-
to be a little much, but.
yeah, I don't even think 3 spaces per bowling alley. People ride together and families come and. I mean, have you done a count at the bowling alley down there when they have, I know they fill up when they have certain things going on. They do
They
fill
do.
that lot.
They
All
do.
those damn yoga people.
That's what it, there you go.
Oh, I'm sure it's that.
Like pants.
Yeah, cause I know that lot does fill when they have tournaments and stuff, but. That's a rarity, right?
I drove by there, just happened by on Tuesday night and the place was almost full.
The lot.
So the lot was
parking.
almost
League
full.
night.
I don't, obviously, yeah.
So that might be a good.
League
thing to
night or
look at,
whatever.
like how many lanes do they have and how much parking, and then maybe it'll give us a better feel for what.
Is this one of those where we are convinced that we can't convert this to a square footage analysis like we've been doing in other elements, and we need to have it X number of spaces per what, because,
Square footage of a golf course?
well, it is a golf course, because you're looking for driving range.
No, there's also golf course.
Yeah, there's golf course,
That
but
would
that,
apply to a golf course.
And I did.
I-
It's not
I don't-
specifically stated.
I don't know that it would, in fact, I would argue
That's my
that it would.
interpretation, that it would apply to a golf course.
See, I would not.
yeah, it says golf.
Driving range has no holes, to be honest with you.
I did delete the term golf course
Yeah.
because I really think we.
Well, we annex, various hills over.
So, but it says golf hole, so is that for a golf course or what's that for?
Well,
Driving
it
range-
says golf driving range.
Driving ranges don't have
Miniature
holes.
golf.
But hole, the hole is in the word on the right
Right,
side.
But that's the parking calculation on the right lane. So if you had a miniature golf place that there were 9 holes on the golf, miniature golf, so it'd be 4 times 9 would be 36.
There'd be no way to measure that for an actual, if somebody actually
Right.
put in a driving range, a real driving range like out where Windwick used to meet Dave Long's place,
Yeah,
there aren't holes to measure by. You would measure by
Right.
either number of tees
right,
or square footage of the tee
Mhm.
boxes where people go out to hit a bucket of balls. So it wouldn't
So-
apply to an actual real driving range.
so, but if you are building a golf course, are you saying then you need 4 spaces for every hole of that golf course?
I took out golf course.
Golf courses are not covered by
I
that.
put down golf driving range.
A driving range and a golf
So-
course completely different.
Okay, so when I look at page 33 on the left, it says bowling alleys golf, just says the word golf.
No, golf is continued above to the top of the next page.
Golf driving
driving
range,
range.
miniature golf, racquet course. Okay, so the hole is the miniature golf. So where is golf? Tell me the number.
I took golf out because I did not believe we would
Golf
get a
course.
golf course.
Golf.
Yeah, golf course.
You took out.
What about indoor golf? Simulators.
What about-
Ben Harbor.
Do we have
We
one?
have several.
Benton Harbor has one. We don't have one.
So don't say
Oh,
never.
do we?
Because I'll just tell you,
Yeah,
I
we
just
used to
went
down
to
by the river
a
across from Clementine.
golf
Sands over there.
course
It was
that
nice.
was
I don't go down there.
330 feet by
Yeah,
three hundred
it's gone.
and sixty, and
It's
it
gone
had
now.
two
Oh,
18
Right, it's
hole
where chimney sweeps.
miniature,
No.
like putt.
But that would be under your miniature golf.
Okay, so what about a course like the Wii
Athletic
course at
facility?
I don't know
St.
enough
Joe?
about that one. I
If
mean,
that's,
I
is
guess I
that
was
a
St.
nine-hole
Joe?
course for a par 3?
We might.
It's a 9-hole
Let you-
course that's smaller than,
That golf course,
That's a
even,
new one.
that is completely different. A golf course is completely
Track
different
man.
from anything in
That's
this
awesome.
house. An actual golf course, whether it's
It's not where you went to school.
a par 3 out of Blossom.
so if
or-
we get one, we need to specially consider what the parking happens.
Well, and there's already language that if the use doesn't fall specifically in there, the
Then
zoning
that-
administrator can review and decide what would be the
Okay.
best.
Okay, I'm okay with that then.
But indoor golf is real.
Yeah,
The simulators are real.
yeah,
That's like, and paddle, and we're doing it with pickleball and paddle, all, but that's all real. We've had those and they're in the area. Where would you locate?
I would
those?
put them under this indoor where the axe throwing, billiard hall, bowling alley lanes. But you usually go with a group, usually 4 people to a box, like, where I've been asked, and then that's where I was the second.
feel like 4 spaces for each one is a lot. I mean, people ride together and.
Not those also necessarily.
Well, to an axe throwing or something, or a, I don't know.
Look at sandbars.
People are drinking, they don't want it, they want a designated driver and they're gonna all I don't know, you wouldn't think you'd have 4 cars for one port. That's just me.
Well, but it also allows space for, if your time is from 2 to 3, the people. who wanna
They
be working
overlap,
3,
yeah, that's a
they
good,
wanna
that's a
be
good
there,
point.
So they get into their time slot right when they can, so they don't.
That's that's a good point.
I mean, I went down from what bowling required of 5 to 4. I don't bowl.
Yeah, I think this is a good start. I'm ready to see actual amended ordinance revision brought to us for our review. I would eliminate campground, I would eliminate open space park, and I would eliminate water-related beach or waterfront access. And put the whole thing together with everything we discussed years ago, and that way all the fresh new eyes that we have now on the board can review that and see if we can get this on our plate.
I'm good with that. In fact, I was gonna suggest it, my colleague just jumped right in there, good for him, he's good, right, I think so. Got it, do you have enough guidance to do it?
So my only question is, because and Lori will probably help me, so I talked to her and said, you know, and I've even alluded to in the memo, like I would like to do a red line version.
Okay.
But I think there's so many well, Lori and I will see what we can get together for a red line version. And that's why I kind of, it was a lot. But this one, the last set of pages stapled together is the consolidated, everything that we've talked about in the past, in addition to the couple of things.
But when you send us where put that in, do not ask us to keep it from this
Right,
packet.
no, I
Let's do a complete ordinance, everything we've done, and compiling from there, I think that makes it easier. To keep the flow.
Or
And
what
we'll
we
send-
might, or would you be okay if we took the existing language and then in the, because it's 2 columns like this, and in the first column, we say where we moved it to and not so much adjust this.
Let's work with what we're actually gonna be looking at. And ask us to actually modify, I think that helps. I don't know that,
And if
what do
I
folks think?
get you a couple of ordinances that indicate outdoor dining or outdoor, you know,
So the ones I've seen, it's like,
because I just think that's more important.
Well, I
no,
think
I-
it's seasonal and you're gonna have to pay to park. I don't think people are gonna go.
But they're not all in the downtown. They're not always in the downtown.
Well, I don't know how many we have in the city though, outside of the downtown, we probably have some. But
I think
would
about
say
Vicky's Sandbar, for example.
That's probably, and
You
the
know,
parking there is terrible.
Yeah, how they've
Yeah.
increased
Yeah.
with that.
Because they have all that outdoor, and then when they have that, they park at the bowling alley.
Mhm,
So
that's
to
right.
me, that is an
And the
important
office
one to
No,
add,
yeah,
because
next
that's
door.
the trend ever since
Yeah,
COVID,
right,
is to have
right.
outdoor dining.
I don't know if they park at the bowling.
But you
alley,
have
they
bowling
park at
leagues in
office.
the summertime,
That's where I
so I
park.
think it's a good use of shared parking.
and Westview uses the bowling alley parking lot with their permission. That's where they send their guests to, the way they said when I was there.
Yeah, park.
And that, as the requirements go down, the need for those kinds of agreements are going to go up.
100%.
It's just gonna be part, it will go to marketing, it's gonna go to cost, it's gonna go what you can charge. I'm not gonna pay as much for something where I don't have a place right outside my door. I gotta
That's
walk a couple blocks, it's healthy and that's good, but I'm not gonna be willing to pay it. I mean, I think some of this is just gonna be a function of marketing. But I think it's inevitable, the lower the requirements, some of these things are gonna pop up. But I was just thinking, outside seating, that to your issue, beyond the downtown, Vicky's, that's a great.
It's a good.
Anybody else besides Vicky come to mind?
Buffalo Wild Wings.
Yeah,
They have outdoor.
Sure.
yeah, they do.
But theirs, because it's all covered.
It's all part of the,
Really within the.
Part of
within the
it.
building, that might have
Yeah.
been something.
Plus they sit in a sea of
And I'm
asphalt.
also
anyway.
thinking
I'd
about.
say half the stuff is
And I'm
abandoned
just thinking
anyways.
about
I don't go
future,
there, so.
like future, you know,
Yeah.
it would be good to know that if you have outdoor, like even on that, you know, that one I just worked on, I had to count a
Well,
certain number of spaces.
Would it either go
add
to,
for
depend on
the-
how we calculate, would it go to either that increases your square footage for consideration of your parking requirement, or it increases your seating capacity if the number of guests is your determinant? Either way, outdoor seating, outdoor patio, outdoor, whatever, new, old, or somewhere in between, can get considered, it's just how do we do it? Do we do it by the number of seating
Mhm.
people you are now anticipating seating, or add that structure, no structure, building, no building? You are adding X number of square footage to your event. For parking purposes, we consider that into the square foot factor.
Typically.
Either one works
But
for
it's
me.
seasonal.
Right, that's the tough
Typically, they
part is
don't
it's a
figure it at the
very
same
small
rate
portion
as
you're
the
planning for.
buildings. They figure it as a lot less because it is seasonal usage stuff.
Yeah.
But I can get you a couple examples.
The restaurant there at Hilltop, no, not Hill. Next to the Holiday Inn, they have outdoor seating. And they also do outdoor seating. In the past, they did outdoor seating in the winter with those.
Mhm.
It would be worth considering adding it, just so it's in there, so that when it comes up, we have it.
They are increasing. Trying to make the outdoor, a longer part of the year. Timothy's does it, I mean, there are
Mhm.
some that do it, but. We're still sort of, I think, on the front end of that, and from an expense point of view, but it's probably coming. With that, does that give you enough? Kristen,
Yes.
okay. Will we move on to childcare?
It was, yeah.
Was there anything else from this you want before you go back to Lord, start your red line? Okay. All right, then let's look at childcare. Quickly,
Well, it just was us. We have, then we'll start working on this again.
what are you looking for from us though in terms of
If
direction?
There were specific items you guys wanted us to look at. You had any concern about childcare?
Well, what is this, what's the
So-
city's goal in bringing us the topic of childcare? Is it to make it easier to have childcare facilities in the city? And if so, you want some recommended changes? Is it taking care of the ones we have, but we need to address?
Yeah, pretty much, our zoning ordinance doesn't allow.
Right.
Does not allow childcare unless you're a church.
Okay, and the staff's recommending that we loosen that up and make it, okay. What are you recommending as far as zoning districts where this should be out? We're talking about in-home childcare facilities, or both?
Well, it's both, and we do allow it in homes, home daycare is,
I was gonna say, we have an awful lot of illegal home daycare that I'm aware of only.
but we
because of
don't
what I do.
regulate home daycare, so I wouldn't know where they're at or anything.
Right, but they're home occupation, they're not illegal where they are unregulated, but they're not illegal if they are in compliance with state licensing, correct?
But we don't allow commercial ones, current state, right?
Commercial ones,
Right.
yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
but there are people doing childcare in their
Mhm.
homes that comply with Michigan state law. They're doing it, we don't regulate that at the present time, correct?
Correct.
Okay,
Unless
So-
it's a complaint.
well, what do we do if someone complains?
We would go investigate it, and if it doesn't comply with state law, then we would bring it up.
We'll
to the
assume for
state.
the moment that they comply with state law. There would be nothing at this point in time the city of St. Joe could do about that, correct?
Correct.
It does not come in and under home occupation? Our,
Most of our home occupations don't require any.
I understand, but there, we do have a home occupation ordinance.
Section, yes.
All right, so is staff looking to, is the trend toward enlarging, making it clear they are allowed and putting in designated areas where they can be, citywide, or what is it? Help us with what you're kind of looking for, and then we can give you some.
We probably need to look at rules so they're allowed in the C district, possibly the CO districts. Maybe the industrial district. Some communities that want them there too.
Well, but in a geography, talking to geography here, even if it's in an industrial area, the one to city of St. Joe, even if I work at Corwell, I can probably find my way to an industrial area, to have my call it childcare. So I don't know that that's necessarily a criteria, but it's because we're so
What about?
relatively landlocked in terms of.
I don't think I'm opposed to childcare in any of our districts.
So you wouldn't allow them in the downtown?
I mean, that's something you guys can decide. I mean, I probably wouldn't recommend that
Why
because
not?
there's no
What's the help us?
outdoor play area.
Well, like for instance, the you know, the Y was there forever and it had daycare.
They walk them to parks
And it was a really nice, from a location standpoint, a nice, because they would take the kids to
They
the
did have
beach and
Lakefront Park.
the playground and all kinds of stuff to
The
the
library,
library and the
Krazel.
Krazel, and that, I mean, to me, the
Take care of kids.
walkability of having somebody downtown is.
Works in lots of cities.
Beg your pardon?
I said it works in lots of cities to
Yeah.
have them downtown without
Yeah,
a
just like-
designated green space to play in.
It's, yeah.
And how about,
100%.
how about R1 district? Would you allow that?
I'm not opposed to allowing commercial childcare that makes it more affordable for the Berrien County residents, period. As a general rule, I used to pay more for daycare than I paid for my house in Colorado.
It's crazy. It
So
is crazy.
to me, not allowing it is ridiculous for the people who live here. It just doesn't make logical
I'd like
sense.
to see it being considered in the downtown because of all of the benefits of what it provides for.
And there may be some concerns in the R1
Yeah.
district that we haven't necessarily thought of, but I mean, I'm open to having that conversation. So can we start, first of all, have you secured some
So,
examples of childcare or ordinances from other cities?
so the packet you received back in November included two documents that the state of Michigan, there was a grant given to a planning consulting firm to do, they reviewed everyone's zoning ordinances. That gave examples of what could be done to our zoning ordinance.
Can you regenerate those and send those out again?
Resubmit, okay.
Please. They offered me $1 million tax free right now. I'm not sure I can put my hands on my November. I really want to. for
Mine are in the-
$1 million.
I'd loan you
Mine are
mine.
in the recycling. Wherever they take recycling.
I'm not
they-
sure.
I'd figure it out.
Mine are in that
Cross out
recycling.
December. Yeah, I mean, the childcare need is extraordinary. I
Yes.
am on board with it. I will just caution some of our newer members, when you start talking commercial activity in pure residential neighborhoods, you will get
Oh,
a response.
yeah, I'm not making a formal declaration. I'm just saying, I do think we need to strongly reconsider not allowing it
Yeah. and I
because of the
think-
constraint it
It
puts on
isn't, it's
people.
not so much as it, Kirsten, that it's been a formal declaration of not allowed, it's just, it's not been addressed. It doesn't, it's nowhere in our ordinance, correct?
Except for like institutional buildings or churches,
Right.
so it's an accessory use there.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't go so far as say we can't, I just think it just never, it's kind of one of those borderline, kind of never came up.
But if you're not a church current state, I can't open a commercial one tomorrow, can I?
No, I don't. So
Okay.
And you base that on what?
the zoning ordinance and the calls I received at one
I
time.
don't care about the
The
calls,
building
what,
on
what the
Hilltop.
ordinance
So the
tells you.
ordinance does not talk about daycare
Cause it's
in the
silent.
commercial districts or the CO district.
See, that's my point. It's silent,
Okay.
so we want to make it not silent anymore,
So
maybe,
wouldn't it be a business use?
right?
The way the ordinance is set up, no, it doesn't fall under there. There were two different, businesses or companies in the area that called about different properties and, after we researched the zoning ordinance, that one was a COA parcel, one was a C parcel.
Which parcels?
They would need to change, the one is where United Federal is on Hilltop. And then the other parcel is the old Federal, their old building, the two-story office building, down the street from you. That one.
Would have been great, child.
So, I mean, we were open to helping them change the rules, but, they chose to do other.
Yeah, we need to, and I would even go so far as you've got pretty quick, I haven't heard anybody here opposed to opening up our ordinance toward childcare. Okay, so you got a consensus on that. So I think you can start drafting, we're looking at that, we're looking at where it's permitted. Whether there are any districts, R1 or other, where it can be maybe not permitted, but permitted with special use. I don't know whether that needs to be. It doesn't have to be, I'm just
Sure.
throwing out the options. Whether down in Water, like somebody wants to do a childcare center down in Harbor Shores area. No. Okay, it have to be part of I'm perfectly okay with that and recommendations from staff. I think the consensus is we want reasonable, rational, give people an opportunity. I guess would be in the R1 that might wanna come talk to us. I have nothing.
All of the largest childcare currently in the city is in R1.
Which one?
Trinity Lutheran and First Church.
Yeah. But in fairness, with a whole lot more asset-wise, acreage-wise and space than somebody that might be doing it in a.
And
most
parking.
R1s.
Egress.
Exactly, I mean,
It's
but a fair point, I mean, there's no question they are, and. You know, it's a use that I don't believe has generated, I mean, is the city getting legions of calls about the childcare aspect of either of those properties? Just complaints?
And I mean, that's over the last 9 years, so,
Which
and
is-
one of them, the one on Hilltop was before COVID, before, you know, the federal purchased that building.
So I didn't hear the first part, but were you getting concerns or complaints about the childcare aspect? I would think so. If anybody's got a complete witherall in terms of traffic and traffic flow and pick up and drop off. Seems to be if anybody's gonna have an issue, that they might have it and yet they're full up with waiting lists, so. Okay,
What's the difference between private and commercial? They're both regulated.
Well,
I'm just, is it a numbers or?
so if it's. I mean, you can do daycare out of your house, and I mean, that's.
Is there a restriction? There's
There's a
restriction to how
restriction on
many
the
kids.
number of kids.
and there are requirements of kitchen, bathroom, there are
Right.
Okay.
requirements the state imposes to have, in order to have these number of.
So you
kids.
can't have 100 kids in a building.
Not licensed.
So a family home provider serves 7 children. So whatever a group home provider is through the state, you can serve 14 kids now.
In the same building?
Well, I think those are 2 different licenses.
Right, but if I got the second license in my house, I could double the number of kids that I buy daycare for.
Well, you'd have to meet all of the standards and
Right.
there's there's area, room area, the number of caregivers you have.
Okay, so the restrictions, okay.
So let's say a
It is
home on
pretty
Lakeshore
complicated.
Drive that you know, like a home on Lakeshore Drive that has a lot more land, like where the Corwell,
Mhm.
Or
you know,
Ridgewood.
change. I mean, that's a good example though of it's zoned R1, but it has a lot of acreage and, you know, it's in an area that might be suited for something like that, but it's R1. So there, I understand why it would work in an R1, so maybe R1 is case by case basis where it's has to be.
But there are commercial buildings, and I'll just be honest with you, the trend, because I have a family member that's doing this thing with the state. The trend is toward early learning centers and childcare. You can start bringing them in through your childcare, it goes right to preschool.
Sure.
And fights before, and they are looking at commercial, former medical buildings
Yeah.
tend to.
Well, didn't St. Joe just buy the bank? Like a year and a half ago, over by,
The city isn't-
We bought a bank.
no, sorry, St. Joe School District.
I don't believe it.
Oh, they didn't buy it?
I think that because the.
Oh, because the bond
passed.
failed, that's right, because that's what they were going to do, is develop that same exact
Yeah,
thing.
that is very much the
Yep.
forefront of where districts are going, and they are affiliated with the school district often. And that would definitely be more of a, I happen to know one where they're renovating a former medical building, because the sinks and the restrooms and all
They're
that.
already there.
Yeah,
And
right.
Yeah.
converts very well to the stringent daycare requirements, so it's probably coming, so we probably need to tackle it on that. All right, Kristen, we've given you plenty to do. What else is on our agenda for our April 9th Wednesday meeting? Anything so far?
I
What's the
think we
cutoff?
might get some sign requests.
From who we thinking?
One would be the yoga place next to the bowling alley.
Well, they're practically falling over people over there in those yoga pants.
Yoga life.
New sign, and we've already got our, they were possible for this month.
Yeah,
Didn't
I
get it.
don't know what.
And who else?
And then, I don't know where the other one is, the sign company called today, asking questions. I don't know anything about. the sign.
Okay, so it could be two.
Oh, we
And
might have a rezoning too.
where's that? What's that about?
I know. Upton, south of the tracks on the west side of the road. It's a parking lot right now,
Going from what to what to
going from right to the,
recreation. It's got
as
that.
part of an eventually sometime this year, you'll see a development request, PUD request for the area on Whitwam and Upton and the north side of the street and the south side and then this other part.
By Paddler's Park.
Are you?
Yeah.
Finally gonna do
familiar with
something.
that?
That's exciting.
So you're out.
I'll
on
be
that.
out.
great.
What are we looking at here?
Well, so the overall, you think June or July, I hope so. I bet you it's
It won't be
May.
May, there's no way.
So it's I'm gonna say similar, but not similar to Harbor Village.
We call it a resort with some housing.
and-
I like it.
and
Who's the developer on this?
Harbor,
Harbor
the,
Shore, well, you can't
Harbor,
say. the-
whatever they're called.
No, she can say.
no, it's
not
all public,
confidential.
it's all.
It's all, this is all public.
Kristen can, yeah, Kristen can.
Yeah,
I mean, it,
it's not related, it's not affiliated with Harbor Shores.
well, no, it is, that
It
property
is.
is all.
Oh,
Yes, it's called parcel 2 back in the day when
okay.
they called everything different parcel numbers.
Yes.
So parcel 2 is owned by that redevelopment company of Harbor Shores Redevelopment, or maybe they changed their name.
Redevelopment.
Yeah.
and we'll
So
see.
Bob McFeeder used to be in charge